Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The matter of risk and our sustenance, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala didn't hand this over to any human being. But this Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala kept in His hand, Allah Ta'ala kept in His control. Many a time we think that I'm a successful businessman or I'm a professional or whatever it might be. And it is through this means that I'm getting my risk. But in reality, this is just to keep the system of the world going. And above the system of the world is the system of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. A person that is ill, the system of the world, the sunnah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is a person goes for treatment. But whether the treatment is going to give cure or not cure a person, that is in the hands of Allah Ta'ala. So Allah Ta'ala's system is above that system. So if a person, his gaze must be on the top, on the system of Allah Ta'ala, which is above all the systems of the world. So risk also Allah Ta'ala has kept in His hands, that how much He wants to give, who He wants to give, that is in the hands of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Mufti Taqi Uthmani Saheb, Nawan Barakatum, he explained, he said that my brother, he's not an alim of deen, but he spent time in the company of the pious people of the Ahlullah. So he says on one morning in Pakistan, it was raining, it was a cold morning. So he's wondering that should I go to the shop or shouldn't I go to the shop? Now he says the shop that I have is where I sell kitabs. So I thought to myself that on a morning like this when it is raining, who's going to come to the shop to come and buy kitabs? But then he said now because he had company, see this is when you have sohbat, company of the pious people. So Allah Ta'ala put in his heart that my job is to open the shop. And to send your risk and to send your customers, that is not in my hands. That is in the hands of Allah Ta'ala. We must do what is within our means and leave the rest to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. So he says I went and I opened the shop. And I sat down and I opened my Quran Sharif, I started reading Quran Sharif. He says, just like any other day, how much business I would do on a normal day, he says, on this day when it was raining and it was cold, exactly the same amount of business approximately I had done on this day also. So how Allah Ta'ala provides for a person? In Quran, Allah Ta'ala says, أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا أَنَّا خَلَقْنَا لَهُم مِمَّا عَمِلَتْ أَيْدِينَا أَنْعَامًا. That do they not see, this human being, do they not see, أَنَّا خَلَقْنَا لَهُم, we created for them, مِمَّا عَمِلَتْ أَيْدِينَا أَنْعَامًا, those animals which we created with our own hands. The animal, who created? Allah Ta'ala created the animal. So Allah Ta'ala is saying, doesn't insan see this animal? We created with our own hands. فَهُمْ لَهَا مَالِكُونَ. And we make insan the malik of it. You the owner of it. This is just outwardly, he is the owner of it. Temporary ownership Allah Ta'ala gives him until he lives in the world. And thereafter his ownership also comes to an end. That's why in another verse Allah Ta'ala says, وَمَا لَكُمْ أَلَّا تُنْفِقُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. What is wrong with you? That you do not spend in the path of Allah Ta'ala. وَلِلَّهِ مِيرَاثُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. To Allah Ta'ala belongs the inheritance of the heavens and the inheritance of the earth. Meaning that a time is going to come where the entire world will come to an end. And when the world is going to come to an end, where is all our wealth going to go? At that time there will be nobody that is living when Qiyamah is going to take place. So everything in the world will be inherited once again by Allah Ta'ala. It will go back into the possession of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. So from here we understand really we own nothing in the world. So when Allah has given us everything, it belongs to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala asks us that after 1 year that you spend 2.5% in zakat and you discharge this, I have made this obligatory upon you. 97.5% you keep for yourself. And 2.5%, this is what is made obligatory upon you, you must discharge in zakat. So here a person happily he must spend this 2.5%. It is difficult on the nafs, but at that time a person should remind himself, it belongs to Allah. Allah gave me. When I came in the world I had nothing, I'm going to leave with nothing. So if Allah is asking me for 2.5%, can't I give Allah Ta'ala's wealth back to him? Happily a person should spend this in the path of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Now today we spoke to one attorney. He phoned, he wanted an appointment last week, so I told him I don't have time Thursday, Friday, but on Saturday we'll make time. So today, mashallah, he came forward. So he was explaining, he's an attorney and he's a person that's of dunya. He's a secular minded person. But he says, my zakat, I want it accurate. I want it in order in accordance to Sharia. And as we were discussing, then he told me that I applied for a loan from a bank. So I told him, but that is haram. Can't you just stop it? Has it come through? He said, it's approved. I said, have you got the money? He said, I haven't got the money. So I told him that can't you stop it? You're going to pay riba, which is haram. You're going to be at war with Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. So he said, fine, we'll stop that also. So this is what is deen. When some masla is explained to us, immediately a person must be able to make amal, he must be able to practice upon it. So then he told me, 20152.
It's a Honda.
Honda. The person can please remove it if somebody is here.
In fact, there's a few cars parking other cars here.
Okay, shut up. So then he told me that I discharge my zakat every year in the month of Ramadan. So we came to a topic that how did you come to the month of Ramadan? How did you get your zakat date in the month of Ramadan? Which majority of us do? Then perhaps more than 95% of the people, they just choose Ramadan. That Ramadan is the month in which I will discharge my zakat. No, that is not how a person stipulates a date of zakat. When a person becomes baligh, after he becomes baligh, the first time in his life, he gets the nisab. Let's say currently the nisab is approximately 7,900, approximately 8,000 rands. So let's say a boy became baligh. After he became baligh now, the first time in his life, he gets 8,000 rands. That day he's supposed to record. Now for our children, this will be beneficial. We should pass this over to our children, our grandchildren. So the first time in his life, when he became baligh and he got the nisab thereafter, that date must be recorded. Now if he maintains that nisab for a period of 1 year from that particular date, and we work according to Islamic date. We don't work according to the English calendar. We work with the Islamic date. So let's say it is the 1st of Muharram, he got 8,000 rands. Now 1 year later, if he maintained that 8,000 rands, then 1 year later on the 1st of Muharram, that will become his zakat date. He cannot calculate zakat now in the month of Ramadan. Unless, for example, he goes back to minus. He loses all his money. He goes into minus. He comes into a debt. Then again when he gets the nisab for the first time in his life, for the first time thereafter, he will have to record the date again. And if he maintains it for 1 year, then that will become his zakat date. So a person, once his zakat date is stipulated, he has to calculate his zakat on that particular date, on that zakat date. He has to take account of all his assets on that particular date. And then he may discharge his zakat. Many people, they delay the discharging of zakat. Like many a times it happens that our zakat, we hand it over to certain institutes. Now the institute takes the zakat and they got it in their bank account. 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, the zakat is lying over there. And it is not disposed of, it is not utilized. So our zakat is not discharged. So it becomes makruh. When the next Ramadan is going to come in and our zakat is not discharged, now it is makruh, now we in sin. Because our zakat is not discharged. That is why the best is every person discharges his zakat himself. And if he cannot do it, then give it to a reliable person that can then discharge our zakat as required in Sharia. Then also we find that many a times in a partnership, there's two partners that are in a business. So we say the shop must pay the zakat. The shop can't pay zakat. Every individual, he is responsible for his own zakat. So let's say there are two partners in a business. One person, his zakat date is on the 1st of Muharram. And the other person, his zakat date is the 1st of Ramadan. So the person on the 1st of Muharram, he has to take stock on the 1st of Muharram because he is responsible for his own zakat. The shop can't pay zakat for you. And the person whose zakat date is the 1st of Ramadan, he has to take stock on the 1st of Ramadan. And according to that, each one will have to dispose of their own zakat. Now, if one partner wants the other partner to discharge zakat for him, he has to give him permission. If the other partner just discharge zakat for both of them, the zakat of the other person is not discharged because you didn't take permission from the other person. The same applies between husband and wife. We discharging zakat for our wives sometimes, but we don't take permission from them. We say, no, it's my wife, I want to discharge. If you haven't taken her permission, her zakat is not discharged. You have to take her permission and then discharge the zakat. Then only is the zakat of the wife discharged. Another masla is when it comes to our businesses, many a times we discharge zakat on the cost price of the goods. No, zakat is not discharged on the cost price. Zakat is discharged on the market value of the goods. And the market value of the goods is approximately the selling price. What you will get for that item on the market. When you sell your goods, what you're going to get, that is what zakat has to be discharged upon. Few months back, one person came to me, he said, I've been calculating zakat on the cost price. So I told him, for so many years you calculated on cost price, you need to estimate plus minus what is the shortfall and you have to pay up. MashaAllah, he was a sincere person. He said, I don't have cash but I have clothes. He brought 60,000 rand worth of clothes and he said, give it wherever you want to give it and discharge of the zakat. So we were that time in Azad room, so I arranged with one alim that was working in the township. I said, take all these clothes and go and discharge it in the township. But he was sincere. There was a shortfall, immediately he filled up. So if a person hadn't calculated correctly, there has been a shortfall in the past, then we should try and fill up that and discharge our zakat correctly, inshallah. We'll continue from here. Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq.